This one is difficult, but it matters. Sascha Riley is a white male, decorated Iraq war veteran, and a survivor who has publicly shared testimony alleging that he was trafficked as a child. He states that from within ages 9 to 13, he was trafficked within what he describes as the Trump-Epstein network. And prior to that, he was abused and trafficked by his adoptive father, beginning around the age 6. These are allegations, not facts. That distinction matters. Riley says he has provided documents and corroborating material to authorities and that he is currently living outside of the U.S. for safety. He states that he is willing to testify under oath if given the opportunity. What he's asking for isn't belief without evidence. He's asking for an investigation. Listening to testimony doesn't convict anyone, but it does mean taking survivors seriously enough to investigate their claims. History has already shown us what happens when powerful people are protected by silence, especially in cases involving trafficking of young children. If you can stomach it and you choose to listen to the unedited version of Riley's testimony, be warned, the details are graphic and disturbing. So please protect your mental health. But don't look away just because it's uncomfortable. Survivors don't owe us perfection, but institutions owe them accountability. Investigation is not persecution, and silence has never been justice. Share your thoughts in the comment section and follow me for more.
I'm just checking here.
So to kind of recap what we were just talking about, one of the first memories that seared itself into my consciousness because of being what I perceived as a threat as a child was watching Donald Trump kill a litter of puppies. He did it in a variety of ways. As I stood there, they made me stand there, and he would harm or kill the puppy and then look to see what my reaction was. And in my child's brain, that registered because I viewed him as somebody more dangerous than my parents, and I knew that they would hurt me. So in my ability to reason, my reasoning was if they were worse people than my parents, that they were somebody that might kill me. So that is why he was so. That's why I most of the stuff I just tried to forget, but with him, with Andy, and with Jim, I remembered them because they. The truth is, they scared me.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to summarize a bit about what we had discussed that wasn't recorded. So with Trump, when Trump murdered the puppies and forced you to watch, you were 8 or 9 years old. That was your first remembrance of Trump. And had Trump sexually assaulted and tortured you already?
Maybe, but I don't recall. I think what happened, and I'm relatively certain, but I think that was the precursor to him sexually assaulting me.
So
I think that was in an effort to make the experience as brutal as possible for me. That was the same kind of MO that was used with Patricia later on.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed to be that he would use his imagination as such to try to figure out what way would be the most traumatic, to make the most traumatic experience to destroy somebody, kind of traumatize somebody to the maximum potential possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first template of that was watching him kill those puppies. And then the next higher order of that, and I couldn't tell you exactly how much time passed between, but I would say likely a couple of years, or at least a year later, before the instance with Patricia.
Okay, and the incident with Patricia was
and
when...
at that point, that point, I had already, in my mind, I had already thought there's no way I'm going to live through this anyway. They're just going to torture me to death anyway. So I might as well do everything I can to fight back.
Okay. And so with the incident with Patricia then recapping, they told you to go into another room with Patricia. There was film? They were filming?
No.
There wasn't filming in such a case?
What happened with me and Patricia, my dad, before we got to the party, said, hey, there may be somebody you know. I had been trafficked with her previously.
Yeah.
But she and I were as close to being friends as you could be. We were, in the same boat as far as, our station in life. So we had kind of become friends, and she ran up to me, and I can remember she's saying, hey, come go with me. And I said, I can't. And my dad said, no, it's okay. You guys go off and have fun. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you can go just have fun. You're an adult now. And I can remember thinking in my mind, I was wondering, what happens next? And the only things that I knew of really of being an adult was my dad. And I knew that he didn't go to these parties and get assaulted. So in my mind, I thought, well, maybe that part of my life is over. But anyway, we left. We wound up going into the farmhouse. We went into the room not at the behest of anybody else. She wanted to have sex with me because she knew I wouldn't hurt her.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, I wouldn't swear to this part, but I am relatively certain she and I had already made some movies together, off, not at the farm, but at a shoot. But I didn't have sex in a way that brutalized people, because I kind of knew how that felt. So it was a matter of her kind of choosing somebody to try to go have sex with. So she wouldn't be placing her life in danger by having sex with one of these rich guys. So we went in and started having sex. This was not in front of anybody. It wasn't filmed that I know of. It was just, we kind of, if we were going to have the opportunity to go have sex with somebody, we were going to go have sex with each other, because that, in that instance, neither of us would get hurt. Mm-hmm. But while we were in that room, after some period of time, the people at that party busted in, 6, 5, 6, 8 maybe people, big people, adults. At least one of them had a gun. I think 3 or 4 of them had a gun, to be honest with you. But then they assaulted her with me at gunpoint, and then they killed her in front of me. Mm-hmm. And said, that's what's going to happen to you if you don't do everything the next person that walks in this room what they want.
Do you think they knew Trump was going to walk in the room? Do you think they had premeditated that Trump would walk in the room next?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was just part of the experience for him, to traumatize me. And for all I know, he was watching through a crack in the wall. I don't know about that.
So like an escalation from the puppies.
Yes.
Okay. So Trump would traumatize you first and then sexually assault you. There was the incident when Trump murdered the puppies and forced you to watch. And then the incident when Trump had Patricia killed.
Yes.
Okay. And then that's the incident with Patricia we spoke about, where Trump assaulted you, tortured you, and then Trump wanted you to engage in sex with Trump, and you found the tent peg and got a condom on, and then inserted the condom in Trump's anus,
and kicked it as hard as I could.
And kicked as hard as you could. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my plan was to continue hurting him to death, but as soon as I did that, he started screaming, and those same people busted back in. So.
And then what occurred?
my dad was at that party, obviously not in that room. It was just these other people, but we did not get assaulted or anything at that party. They didn't know what to do at that point. So we left. We didn't get beat up. I didn't get further assaulted by anyone, but some period of time passed, a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. I couldn't tell you how much time, but I can remember my dad saying, "We've got to go face the music." So, you know, I can remember him talking to me like I had done something wrong. He said, "You can't do that to the rich people. You know, you're going to get beat up." Is basically what he said. He said, "You've been beat up before. It's going to be just like that. You'll be okay." But I can remember him saying, "You can't fight back, or they'll kill us both."
Mm-hmm. And that's when you were taken to the farm, and then 6 or 8,
Yes.
maybe 10 different groups
It
assaulted
wasn't
and tortured
individual.
you.
This is like, it was at least 3 or 4 or 5 people at a time in these groups, because I think by that point I had done what I did to Trump. They knew that I was kind of in a homicidal type of rage, so they made sure to have enough people that they felt safe. Because also my dad could fight too, and he was there.
Mm-hmm.
So they had, in each of these little groups, they had enough that they felt that I'm sure that they could overpower both me and my dad, because my dad's no slouch either. I could fight like a little Wolverine even as a child because of how I came up. Well, he was a bare knuckle boxer and a tough man type of dude, so he could fight too. But it was like they took us from station to station, you know, to I don't know, just to increase the horror of it. I guess I really
Premeditated. Seems like premeditated.
yes.
Like,
Well,
what I know of
like-
Trump is
like-
that
like-
Trump would attempt to premeditatedly stage such a scene to terrorize you retaliatorily.
yes.
So
So he wasn't there at that. I would
Yeah.
assume that it was a close enough time frame that he was still recovering.
yeah,
But I can remember that even my dad having the conversation with the people, because of the level that they had kind of taken it to get me to that homicidal rage. I remember my dad arguing that it was unreasonable. He said, you know, this is just what happens when you push somebody far enough, you know?
so then they
Type of an argument.
So then they took you to different locations, several groups at a time, tortured and assaulted you sexually, and then at one point you said they hosed you off with a garden hose. And what did they say again to your dad? That you were dirty and to hose you off before they
Just they said he's disgusting. Just take a garden hose to him or something. And somebody went inside the house and got a bar of soap. And I remember they threw it at me and hit me in the head, and that they all thought that was funny. And I was struggling because I had to get the soap from the ground, and I can remember being hit to the point where I was just having trouble grasping the soap. Not just from a standpoint of like being able to see it, but like from the coordination aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'd been hit in the head and body and everything so much that I even had difficulty in getting the soap. So they made me like take a shower while they stood there with the garden hose just hosing me off. And I can remember getting really cold from that. But then it wasn't over. That would have been about the halfway point.
And you said it was sexual assault followed by beatings in all of those cases.
Yes. Some people didn't even want to sexually assault me. Some people just wanted to beat the hell out of me. So not all of them, they got to do whatever they wanted, but with all of the different people, it included some sort of physical assault. Physical and sexual assault, or just the physical. There weren't any instances of just sexual assault. It was it was around causing damage to me, and towards the end of it, I can remember my dad saying he can't take anymore, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
And at that point, he had like drugged me because I couldn't walk or anything to one of the groups, and they said if he can't take any more, it's not over with. You're gonna have to take the rest of it. And he said, fine, because I'm gonna go to jail and kill him. So they beat the absolute hell out of him too.
Okay.
But I can remember my dad kind of carried me away from the last group of people, and I think he had to change clothes or something for me, and it took a while, 30 minutes or something, but I finally got clear enough I could breathe and everything, to where I walked out of there with help.
And then is that when they took you to Andy Biggs? Or Andy Biggs tortured and raped you?
Not immediately thereafter, but another week or two passed, or maybe a month, week, two, whatever. I was healed as far as my most of my bruises and stuff like that from the first farm incident by the time I went to Andy Biggs. And of the physical assaults, his was the worst. He kept beating me until my ribs were broken. I was turning blue, convulsing. If you get beaten enough, as you try to breathe, you just kind of click. I can't describe it any other way than that. It's not even a wheeze or anything, but your like diaphragm or something locks up and you just start clicking. Some people call that like the death rattle.
Yeah.
But that's the point to which he beat me, to where when I would try to breathe, my chest would just make this clicking noise. I don't know how to describe it any other way.
You described that extremely, extremely clearly. Like I say, I appreciate your forthrightness. Now, you and I had spoken, and you said that your dad told you that after the incident with Andy Biggs, that your dad said that Trump and Trump's associates said that whatever debt they thought you owed because you fought back against Trump, that the debt was paid, and the debt was you getting raped and beaten brutally by all those individuals, including Andy Biggs.
Yes.
And then you said that you don't recall attending any more parties after that, and you weren't sure if it was because they thought you aged out because you were 12 or 13, or whether they just thought you were too much of a hassle, like they could get caught.
I think all of that came into play, yes.
Or they might wanted to behave vindictive towards your dad about whatever money your dad was earning. Do you think
I couldn't speak to any of that part of it. I'm not even sure like the financial arrangements or anything like that. Yeah. I can remember that when they sent me to the brothel, that they were upset that they didn't make more money. And then I can remember Lynn being absolutely furious because they were going to get this big payday from doing the child porn in Tennessee, but they wound up losing money on the deal because they got stiffed by whoever bought the film when it was done, and they had to spend, I think, some money on a lawyer, so it was a net loss for them.
Mm-hmm.
It was something to do with like the film wasn't as long as what they agreed to pay money for, so they didn't make as much, and you know. So,
but the films.
I just remember them being upset.
Okay. And the filming, most of the filming, the parties was all associated with Trump and the Trump Epstein Ghislaine pedophile ring. Different layers of parties.
Yeah, but it's a whole bunch of people. It's just that from my childhood perspective, what I saw or what I thought that I saw was he was the big boss. Donald Trump was the big boss, and then Epstein was like you said, like the manager or something. And then you had lower level people like my dad that kind of went out and found girls or coordinated, at the ground level of things.
Yeah. So in terms of
even Epstein himself, he just sought out people like my dad that would sell, their adopted child, their actual child, or whatever. So those are the different layers of people.
Yeah. But that Trump was involved in a lot of the planning, micromanaging, filming.
Certainly the payouts.
Yeah.
Because I know that when I was offered to Trump, the excitement that was in the house from Lynn, particularly, was that this is going to be the big payday. We have made it up to the highest level of this thing, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because they would sell me at a lower level to people that they knew. Not this is outside of the parties, but obviously they don't have the type of money that these rich folks have, so that wasn't really a big payday, and they were nervous about taking that kind of money because they were accepting this large amount of risk for really little amount of reward, and they were excited to make it to the level of Donald Trump, because I think the payday that they were supposed to get was $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been another sum, but that's just the sum that I remember. And that may not sound like a lot, especially today, but for our standard of living, that would have been a fairly sizable chunk of money.
Mm-hmm. And we spoke about, in terms of the years, when you were about 9 to 10 years old, maybe 8 years old, until about 13. Mm-hmm. And most of the parties, there were only 3 or 4 kids there. Sometimes only you.
Yes.
And it was sort of the different.
Always have, they would almost always have at least one girl there. So I'm sure that the mentality of that would be, to have a boy or a girl to choose from. And there may have been children at these parties that were in attendance that I just didn't see. Yeah. Because I was being abused, in like a bedroom of the farmhouse or some other location. And there could have been more people there. I can't really say exactly that. Mm-hmm. You get kind of, just from a standpoint of the experience, you very much just kind of lock onto your surroundings to try to stay alive. You're looking at the person that you're having this encounter with, anything that you could potentially use for a weapon, escape paths and stuff like that. Very much you're in survival mode. So you tend to hyper-focus on just what's immediately around you. So there may have been additional things going on, but I really wasn't paying attention to those.
Okay, and we spoke about the average age was like 9 or 10 years old in some cases. Layers of parties.
Up to adult prostitutes were there too. Yeah. So the younger end is 9, 10, all the way up to, young ladies, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds,
And did you ever see Andy Biggs sexually assault and torture anyone else? Or you?
No.
No.
Not that I can recall, no.
And what about Jim Jordan?
No. I remember him from that one instance. I'm not saying that he wasn't at additional, but I only remember him at the one. And I can remember a bunch of people being there, but to be honest with you, the rest of them just kind of melded together. Just a bunch of adults, kind of a crowd of people. The ones that I focused on, the ones that I remember, are the ones that seared into my brain that this person could kill me next time. Yeah. So I need to remember this type of deal, and that's those 3.
Yeah. And then Trump during all those years. Now, did you ever see Clarence Thomas more than once, or Lindsey Graham?
I could have, but I only remembered Lindsay because his mannerisms, particularly when he's not in the public spotlight, are very effeminate.
Yeah.
So that stood out to me, and Clarence stood out to me, and I only remember seeing them at one of those parties before anything happened. So I'm not saying that they were necessarily involved in abuse. They could have been. They could have even been involved in abuse that included me. I just can't swear to that. But he stood out because of his mannerisms being so effeminate. And I believe the people that I was around, my dad and whoever he was talking to at the time, joking and laughing about those mannerisms. And then I remember Clarence because he's a black man. Not only is he a black man, but he's kind of a dark-skinned black man. So in that group of people, he stood out a lot because he was the only black guy there.
Okay. And then in terms of, we talked about transportation, plane, airplane, helicopter, automobile. You said there was usually there weren't a lot of folks on the plane, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 other kids, sometimes just you, with
Right.
whichever adults on
Right.
the plane. When,
Yes.
with the snuff movies, were any of those shot on the farm that you remember? Or those you said were at different locations?
Those were at different locations.
And how many folks
Other
did you see
than-
killed in the snuff movies that you saw filmed? At parties.
Yeah, but it's a whole bunch of people. It's just
Yeah.
that from my childhood perspective, what I saw, or what I thought that I saw, was he was the big boss. Donald Trump was the big boss, and then Epstein was like you said, like the manager or something. And then you had lower level people like my dad that kind of went out and found girls or coordinated, at the ground level of things.
Yeah. So in terms of
even Epstein himself,
yeah.
he just sought out people like my dad that would sell, their adopted child, their actual child, or whatever. So those are the different layers of people.
Yeah. But that Trump was involved in a lot of the planning, micromanaging, filming.
Certainly the payouts.
Yeah.
Because I know that when I was offered to Trump, the excitement that was in the house from Lynn, particularly, was that this is going to be the big payday. We have made it up to the highest level of this thing, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because they would sell me at a lower level to people that they knew. Not this is outside of the parties, but obviously they don't have the type of money that these rich folks have, so that wasn't really a big payday, and they were nervous about taking that kind of money because they were accepting this large amount of risk for really little amount of reward. And they were excited to make it to the level of Donald Trump, because I think the payday that they were supposed to get was $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been another sum, but that's just the sum that I remember. And that may not sound like a lot, especially today, but for our less standard of living, that would have been a fairly sizable chunk of money.
Mm-hmm. And we spoke about in terms of the years when you were about 9 to 10 years old, maybe 8 years old, until about 13. Mm-hmm. And most of the parties, there were only 3 or 4 kids there. Sometimes only you.
Yes.
And it was
They would
sort of the different.
Always have,
yeah.
And they would almost always have at least one girl there. So I'm sure that the mentality of that would be, to have a boy or a girl to choose from. And there may have been children at these parties that were in attendance that I just didn't see.
Yeah.
Because I was being abused, in like a bedroom of the farmhouse or some other location. And there could have been more people there. I can't really say exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
You get kind of, just from a standpoint of the experience, you very much just kind of lock onto your surroundings.
File ring. Different. And most
Yes.
of the parties, there were only 3 or 4 kids there. Sometimes
Yes.
only you.
Yes.
And it was
They
the
would
sort of the
almost
different.
always have.
Yeah.
They would almost always have at least one girl there. So I'm sure that the mentality of that would be, to have a boy or a girl to choose from. And there may have been children at these parties that were in attendance that I just didn't see.
Yeah.
Because I was being abused, in like a bedroom of the farmhouse or some other location. And there could have been more people there. I can't really say exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
You get kind of, just from a standpoint of the experience, you very much just kind of lock onto your surroundings to try to stay alive. You're looking at the person that you're having this encounter with, anything that you could potentially use for a weapon, escape paths and stuff like that. Very much you're in survival mode. So
Mm-hmm.
you tend to hyper-focus on just what's immediately around you. So there may have been additional things going on, but I really wasn't paying attention to those.
Okay, and we spoke about the average age was like 9 or 10 years old in some cases. Layers of parties.
All the way up to adult prostitutes were there too.
Yeah.
So the younger end is 9, 10, all the way up to, young ladies, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds,
And did you ever see Andy Biggs sexually assault and torture anyone else? Or you?
No.
No.
Not that I can recall, no.
And what about Jim Jordan?
No. I remember him from that one instance. I'm not saying that he wasn't at additional, but I only remember him at the one. And I can remember a bunch of people being there, but to be honest with you, the rest of them just kind of melded together.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bunch of adults,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a crowd of people. My name is William Sascha Riley. I was born Manuel Sascha Barros, but my legal name is William Sascha Riley at this time.
Okay. Tell me everything that you've been wanting to say. Testimony, getting your testimony of what you
Okay.
experienced, what abuse you suffered, and what you were witness to.
I am for whatever puts a light on this, because in my mind, the powers that be are already aware of my position on it and aware that I have spoken up. And,
Yeah.
The more light that is shed on there, I don't think that I'm incurring more risk, except for some maybe lunatic that wants to be a soldier for Donald Trump. I don't mind whatever would bring a little bit more light to this, particularly the stuff, if we can get some of this stuff verified. And I know that me speaking up is one thing, but then the verification process,
Yeah.
is important too. I am confident that it's there because somebody that I served with in the Army got put out of the Army. My chain of command talked to me and they said, hey, some of these images, some of the films or whatever that he had looked just like you. And that was the first time I think I had ever talked to anybody about having done those films. And I told them, yes, when I was a child, I had to do those things. They were filming us. It was me and a girl that I knew that I had been trafficked with in other venues. And while we were filming, they came in and shot her in the head. So killed her, obviously. So that would be...
Was that the runaway?
That was another girl, and I can't even remember her name. Yeah. The runaway was tortured to death in a duplex in Enterprise, Alabama. My parents did that, and that wasn't on film, not her being tortured, but that was that black girl that I'm telling you about that later on Michael Bayless had talked to me about. But they went and got her because they were afraid that this was after the investigation in Tennessee, and they were afraid that they would go down for child pornography. So they were wanting to kill her, and then they were wanting to get rid of me via an accident, but they couldn't because they had already tried to kill me several times. They had the incident in Texas involving a Chevy van. There was another instance in Texas where my dad threw me into the middle of a pool and said, "Sink or swim." And somebody saw it and called the sheriff. So there was a police report on that. And then there was a third instance in Texas where my dad threw me down a flight of stairs. And that one fractured my skull. Now, there may have been other things that happened as well, but I remember those three were enough that they generated an investigation.
Yeah.
There were enough things that happened in Texas that my dad moved from Texas to Tennessee, and then got in trouble in Tennessee, and then got in trouble in Tennessee, and then moved to Alabama, got in trouble in Alabama, and then we just moved one more time.
And you're talking about
Alabama.
Your adoptive dad, William Kyle Riley, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
How they got aware that this is their station in life. They're never going to be, I guess, the arm candy of one of those rich people flying on Learjets, you know? Mm-hmm. And the way that Samantha described it is, once they get to that level of consciousness, they have passed their expiration date. So they would only use the girls for a certain amount of time, and, you know, they were either recruiting or finding. I don't know how they got the girls, you know, but I can remember even in the brief period of time that I was there, because I wasn't there for longer than just a few months.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even just like a couple of months. But even in that small period of time, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people killed.
5 killed during 2 months.
Yes. So, I saw Sarah die. She was there I was there when she died. Samantha killed another one of the girls. I think she just killed her because she kept causing problems, to be honest with you. And then the 2, which I believe it was 2, it might have been 1, it could have been 3. I wouldn't swear, you know, on the number, but I believe it was 2 in that one shoot, and then the one girl that was killed during the filming. She was killed on film while the cameras were rolling.
Yeah. And then Sarah was committing suicide, you said.
Yes. Yes.
Trisha to terrorize you.
Yes. So
those were additional killings on top of the 5 during the 2 months, is that?
Well, let me count again. So it's Sarah, the 2. There's another one that I saw killed too.
So Sarah, which was sort of more of a suicide, but then Samantha pulled the trigger, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then one other time where one of the girls was executed in the brothel, and that was in front of all of us.
So one of the girls was executed in the brothel. And did you say that Samantha did the execution? Did they force Samantha to do the execution, or no?
Two separate instances. The one girl that was executed, I did not know her. I don't know if I'd ever even hardly spoken to her, but she was killed as some sort of retaliation. Somebody was beating Samantha, and I got involved in it. And again, it was one of those people that you couldn't touch. So they came and they didn't kill me. They didn't kill Samantha. They just killed this other girl. And I don't even think she had anything to do with it. So
Was that the one in the brothel?
That was one of the ones in the brothel, yes. And then Samantha killed this other girl just because she had beat up one of the other girls, and she kept stealing stuff, and she kept aware that.
And Samantha was the runaway that Riley,
Yes,
that William and
She lived in a house where they had 4 or 5 underage girls that they had scooped up from wherever they got them from, and they would use those girls at these parties. Well, at one time, they sent me to go be a part of that brothel. So that's when I made friends with Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and those are the only 3 that I can remember their names. But Sarah committed suicide, Samantha was tortured to death, and Patricia was the girl that got shot in the bed
Before Trump came in.
Did Patricia die?
Oh, yeah.
Patricia
Yes.
was murdered in the bed before Trump came in. And then they threatened
Yes.
you and said to let Trump do whatever Trump wanted to do to you, or they would shoot you in the head as well.
Yes. I kind of wanted to discuss one other thing, too. One kind of theme at these parties that seemed to be very well thought out is they would have a larger party in the beginning, right? And in these larger parties, you might have, say, a couple of fights or some drug use or things that were kind of, would say, mildly illegal. But the parties would go on for multiple days, and as the thing wound down to the smaller inner circle and the last day or last 2 days or whatever, that's when the really horrible shit happened. So some of the people that attended the party, possibly even people like Clarence Thomas or Lindsey Graham, may have been involved in lesser, but then were also at the same time and place where these horrible things happened, but they didn't necessarily participate in those more horrible things. So that seemed to be an underlying theme of, and this is just me speculating here as an adult, where they would try to get these affluent people in all of these positions of power and influence to come participate in these parties where all of these things were going on, so that, if Clarence Thomas, if he was there at the party, well, then surely nothing, that nefarious could be going on type of situations.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be very well thought out how they kind of did things, but as the party wound down, that's when people in my position would really begin to get scared, because that's when you either were going to get assaulted and maybe really busted up.
No, go ahead.
Me and Samantha having to clean up. We didn't have to do anything with the body, but I can remember me and Samantha had to clean up the blood and everything from both Sarah's suicide, which was an assisted suicide. Samantha actually shot Sarah, but Sarah wanted her to do it. She just couldn't pull the trigger herself. So that's just, so Samantha did it. I was in the room when she did it. And it wasn't a murder. Samantha didn't murder those. Sarah just, I can remember her just saying, I can't go to another party. I can't be here. I remember the hillbillies that my dad sold me to when I was small, they were mean. But I can remember the meanest motherfuckers are those rich people. They are just demonic, Trump included. So at the same time and place where these horrible things happened, but they didn't necessarily participate in those horrible things. So that seemed to be an underlying theme of, and this is just me speculating here as an adult, where they would try to get these affluent people in all of these
positions of power and influence to come participate in these parties where all of these things were going on, so that, if Clarence Thomas, I'll just use him, if he was there at the party, well, then surely nothing, that nefarious could be going on type of situations.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be very well thought out how they kind of did things. But as the party wound down, that's when people in my position would really begin to get scared, because that's when you either were going to get assaulted and maybe really busted up, or, even watching somebody die is really fucking horrible,
Did you see anyone else die besides Samantha and Patricia?
Yes.
Yes.
So, I watched a grown man get beaten to death. He had done something that pissed off the people that were running it, and they killed him. I saw another girl, in addition to Patricia, when I was making the film with the girl, they came in and shot her while we were having sex. That was some sort of snuff film.
Yeah.
And then in the brothel, there were two people that got killed. Sarah killed herself, and then the girl, I don't remember her name, she was shot and killed, and then another girl was also shot and killed.
Okay. And all of these... No, go ahead.
Me and Samantha having to clean up. We didn't have to do anything with the body, but I can remember me and Samantha had to clean up the blood and everything from both Sarah's suicide, which was an assisted suicide. Samantha actually shot Sarah, but Sarah wanted her to do it. She just couldn't pull the trigger herself. So that's just, Samantha did it. I was in the room when she did it. But it wasn't a murder. Samantha didn't murder those. Sarah I can remember her just saying, I can't go to another party. I can't be here. Please.
Well, another of the victims, I don't know if you've read about, the British woman, Sarah Ransom, was on the Epstein Island and tried to swim off the island and was willing to drown than go through another torture.
I mean, it's some horrible shit.
Yeah.
And, I can remember the hillbillies that my dad sold me to when I was small. They were mean. But I can remember the meanest motherfuckers are those rich people. They are just demonic, Trump included.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you some questions there again. So, with the rich folks that you were sold to, that was all associated with the Epstein-Trump trafficking ring. And you said to me you thought Trump ran things with Epstein. Is that true?
Oh, yes. He was not just a client. He was one of the people that facilitated all that stuff. It was almost like, this is just my childhood brain piecing it together. It was almost as if Epstein worked for Trump. And not just Trump, but him and maybe 6 or 8 other super rich guys. So,
do you remember any?
Ran it.
Yeah.
At the behest of Trump and that circle of people. So it was just I couldn't tell you how many people, but he was the only one that I remember that was at that level. But it wasn't that Trump was a John visiting, Epstein's empire of child victims. It was Trump was in a position above Epstein. It was as if Epstein worked for Trump.
Yeah.
And the rest of those ultra rich guys.
Do you remember?
Like he ran that ring for them.
No, I understand. So Jeffrey was sort of presented publicly as the ringleader of the pedophile ring, but Jeffrey was basically behaving like a general manager of the ring, and then there was 7 or 8 other individuals, such as Trump, that were actually actively running the ring, micromanaging, telling Jeffrey what to do?
He would give Epstein that caliber of person, because it wasn't just Epstein. Epstein had people that worked with him too on a lower level that would go like find runaways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they got the people. I can't say that, but you know, it was this whole thing was being run as as for those rich people.
Yeah. I want to ask some more questions in terms of your sense of like the demonic. Some of the advisor work I've done, some of my own specifics of law enforcement, you know, I've come into contact, I've minimized any contact with, I'm familiar with a lot of really horrific horror stories that involve Satanists, occult practitioners, theistic Satanists. You know, I've spoken to folks that were able to get out of the theistic Satanist cults. A lot of the torture techniques you describe are similar to theistic Satanist torture techniques. Sexual torture, human trafficking, human cannibalism, and what I wanted, you know, what's your sense in terms of these parties that what do you remember? Like, was there any overt? I know a lot of the attendees presented themselves as Christians, but their practices are full-blown demonic, satanic. Do you have the sense that any of them were actually secretly practicing any sort of occult rituals, or were they just like rich, fiendish, fake Christians that just didn't experience a conscience?
I think it's the latter. Just rich, fake Christians. I can tell you one thing specifically that Trump did.
Yeah.
And that I remember vividly. I was exhausted. I couldn't fight back. And he sat on my chest and would choke me until I was unconscious. And each time that he did it, he'd say, "I'm going to kill you." So, and then he would choke me until I was out. And, you know, he did that, you know, half a dozen times or however many times. And I can remember him saying, "I thought I killed you that time. I'm really going to do it this time," and then choke me again. So he would just do that over and over again until he got bored of it. So
did you get the sense that he was trying to kill you, or just to torture you about the thought of him?
In the moment, you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that he wants to see the fear in another human being's eyes that thinks that he's killing him, you know?
Yeah.
But looking back, I just think he was just torturing me. You know, I think if had he wanted to kill me, he could have. You know, he could have just kept choking me until I was gone. Because I did get choked until I was unconscious. I don't know, as many as half a dozen times, maybe more.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the type of thing that he would do worse. You know, I believe, I wouldn't swear to this, but I believe that on that instance, my dad had told him, "Hey, you can't bust him up, you can't break stuff." You know, because all his CPS bullshit.
Yeah.
So, and I want to say he was upset at the end of that too because of the bruising. You know, they didn't break bones or anything. But, you know, obviously I had bruising around my neck and different bruises on my body. And that's something else too that I'm just remembering right now as I'm talking to you. At least one instance, the school nurse got CPS involved, I believe.
Yeah.
In both Tennessee and Alabama because of the bruising.
I have had more than one encounter with Trump, and that's why I tried to kill that son of a bitch, because he is a fucking monster. It's why I have not shut up about just how absolutely abhorrent he is as a human being, and it's why I tried to. That's why I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I had decided I had already seen enough other people die that in my mind I thought, well, they're just going to kill me too at some point, right? I'm not going to survive to be an adult from this. So in my mind, he was the biggest pile of shit that I had ever had to have any contact with. So I was going to take him with me. And
How
I
often
think,
did Trump assault you? Do you
I
remember?
can remember two just in and out,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I remember him so clearly. I have had more than one encounter with Trump, and that's why I tried to kill that son of a bitch, because he is a fucking monster. It's why I have not shut up about just how absolutely abhorrent he is as a human being, and that's why I tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I had decided I had already seen enough other people die that in my mind I thought, well, they're just going to kill me too at some point, right? I'm not going to survive to be an adult from this. So in my mind, he was the biggest pile of shit that I had ever had to have any contact with. So I was going to take him with me. And
how often did Trump assault you? Do you remember?
I can remember two specifically. A third one that I think, and I think I was around him more than just those 3 times, but only 3 times do I kind of remember. I can remember at one point him asking the people that were kind of running that party or whatever it was at that farm. He wanted to kill somebody. He wanted to murder somebody, and they said, "Hey, that's not this kind of party. You can't do that." And they, in lieu of doing that, they said, "Well, we've got some puppies. If you just want to kill something, we've got to get rid of them anyway." So I can remember him taking those puppies one by one, and like he snapped one of the puppies' necks. He cut one open and let it just howl and writhe in pain while it died. Held one under some water to kill it. He wanted to kill those puppies in whatever gruesome way, to experience, I guess, seeing them suffer in different ways. What his kink is, I guess, if you want to call it that, is watching people suffer. He likes to destroy people physically, mentally, during the process of the assault. That's why he stands out so much in my memory. And it's physical pain, and then it's also, degrading and all of that. But his thing was to just try to destroy human beings to the utmost that he could possibly do it, which is why I attacked him.
Yeah, that's understandable. So,
I can tell you this: the last one, okay, so this was after they had killed the Samantha. This is the black girl that I made the one of the movies with.
Yeah. And these were. Let me just ask a question, just to clarify. So when Samantha was killed, these were all of these parties at the farm or similar locations to the farm, where there was.
It was multiple farms.
Multiple farms. And usually it was parties. So there was individuals like Trump that were flown into the parties. And
yes.
Then
and they would have like a building, a house, and they would usually have like a tent set up, and it was almost like a little, I don't want to say a fair. It wasn't that big. They didn't have rides or anything, but it was a kind of a coordinated deal, Sometimes they would have the bare knuckle fighting. That probably is how my dad got involved with these people, because you've got boxing and stuff like that on TV, but that's really all you had back in the 70s and 80s. The MMA type of stuff wasn't allowed, and these fights were a little more gruesome. They didn't fight to the death or anything like that, but they were bloody, and I mean, these were fights, and not just boxing. And so the rich people would pay to see that. Sometimes they'd have like a band playing, just like what you would expect at like a fair or something,
So the rich folks would get flown in, associated with
Mhm.
Epstein, and they would pay to watch the victims fight. The victims were all underage. And would they pay to then assault the victims after the fights or during the
Yes.
fights? And they'd pay to
Um,
torture the victims and rape the victims
Yes.
and kill the victims.
But now some of the fights were adults,
Huh.
So if they had some big old country boy and some other guy, they would pay to see that. They would also pay to watch the kids fight, and they did pay to watch me fight. I would fight other kids, and my dad was my initial trainer for me to learn how to fight. I would later go on to be a boxer, an amateur boxer, but that's how I got my start in all of that. So yes, they would have paid for that, and the experiences were different each time. There wasn't like a set thing. You never really knew what was going to happen. So part of it, a lot of it just comes down to money. So if they offered $5,000 to have sex with me, then my dad was willing to do that.
Yeah.
Whatever the dollar amounts were, I don't know.
Sasha, that isn't sex. That's sexual assault.
Right.
I mean, I just want to say something first. And they'd pay to torture the victims and rape the victims.
Yes.
And kill the victims.
But now some of the fights were adults.
Huh.
So if they had some big old country boy and some other guy, they would pay to see that. They would also pay to watch the kids fight, and they did pay to watch me fight. I would fight other kids, and my dad was my initial trainer for me to learn how to fight. I would later go on to be a boxer, an amateur boxer, but that's how I got my start in all of that. So yes, they would have paid for that, and the experiences were different each time. There wasn't like a set thing. You never really knew what was going to happen. So part of it, a lot of it just comes down to money. So if they offered $5,000 to have sex with me, then my dad was willing to do that.
Yeah.
Whatever the dollar amounts were, I don't know.
Sasha, that isn't sex. That's sexual assault.
Right.
I mean, I just want to say something first. I think you're extremely brave. You behave extremely strong, like a warrior. And I just want to stop and say it's important to me to say that, because a lot of folks, wouldn't even survive such trauma, but you've survived, and you conduct yourself with dignity and gracefully, and it's important to me to say that. I hope you know that. I hope you have a sense of your own honor and chivalrousness, especially what you told me in terms of drugs they used on you and how they lured you drugged to behave monstrous towards other kids. I understand the context.
I can remember, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I can remember some arm of law enforcement showing me video of me harming one of the people that they were filming me with. Now, I don't know how that came about, whether they drugged me and I lost my mind, or they told me to do it. I don't know the circumstances, but I can remember being in that room and them saying, well, you did this. And it may have not even been law enforcement. It may have been, like the people that were running that. But I can remember being really upset because I had no recollection of having done that. It was me in the video, and I was beating a girl senseless. And I didn't kill her or anything like that, but you know.
Yeah.
So, and I have a feeling, you know, this part I can't prove because I only have my own experiences, but what the whole thing seems to be is that they first abuse you, then they get you on film abusing others, and now they have you trapped as well.
Yeah.
So you can't talk about the abuse that they did to you. If they want you to be a legacy victim, somebody that they can use in the future, well, then they've got to get you on tape doing monstrous things to other people as well, because now they have the leverage to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. No, and you know what? You're exactly right. That's exactly the tactic. And the tactic is insidious because have you ever heard of the torture technique a lot of occult practitioners use? It's called inversion torture. Inversion magic isn't magic. Sorcery is just smoke and mirrors nonsense, deception techniques. But it's sort of inversion technique where to try to linguistically manipulate the victims to try to get the victims in a position where the victims doubt whether the victims, are good or not.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the case with a lot of the Republicans you mentioned. Like you said, Clarence Thomas and Lindsey Graham were at these parties. You can't remember if Lindsey Graham and Clarence Thomas participated. And it's sort of a question of, did they participate? Were they blackmailed because they were there, attended the parties, but they didn't participate? Can you tell me much more about Clarence Thomas and Lindsey Graham?
I know the least about him. The only reason that I can remember him is because he was a black man, and I'm sorry, but that club is pretty much just white folks. So having a black person there was very unusual. So he stood out. But the only thing that I can really say is that I remembered him being there, and then I remember what a big deal it was in our household when he got confirmed onto the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Because my dad was excited about that because of how high up he was. Now, I can't swear. I may have been assaulted by Clarence Thomas, but I cannot swear to that. If he did assault me, then it was not to the level of something that scared me to the point where I needed to remember it, if that's a good way to put that, which Trump rose to that, and Andy Biggs rose to that, and Jim Jordan rose to that because he was dangerous to me because I could keep most people away from me with my fists, but, he was a good wrestler. So, he scared me in that sense that this is a person that I can't keep away from me with my fists. Lindsey Graham, I am fairly sure he has assaulted me, but I just can't put my hand on a Bible and swear to that.
Yeah.
I know that he was there. I can remember it. He just like Jim Jordan, he has very distinct mannerisms, and his voice is a little unusual as well. So I could remember his voice, I could remember his mannerisms, and then obviously how he looks. So I can put him there, but I just can't. I can't say he did this or he did that exactly. I just can't.
Okay. So
I wish that I could provide more information on that because I think some things went on, but that's just not enough for me to point a finger and make an accusation. But he was there. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, that's enough, and I know that some sorts of interviews we can look at a different time to see if there is any more information you remember. But what you do remember, I just want you to know what you remember to know, that what you remember is extremely important and is extremely helpful. I know you want to be able to remember more, and the memories are in there. And, I just want to approach the situation delicately because, you've been
some of
through
the
a lot.
other memories are just vague. I can, and I have been very careful too not to reach out further because there are some other names that I could mention that I believe were there that I know for a fact that my parents talked about, but I don't have a clear enough recollection of anything. Like, I can tell you 100% sure that they talked about Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe he was ever at one of those parties that I was at. But his name was brought up more than once.
During extremely helpful. I know you want to be able to remember more, and the memories are in there. And I just want to approach the situation delicately because, you've been
some of
through a
the
lot.
other memories are just vague. You know,
Yeah.
I can and I have been very careful too not to reach out further, because there are some other names that I could mention that I believe were there, that I know for a fact that my parents talked about, but I don't have a clear enough recollection of anything. Like, I can tell you 100% sure that they talked about Vladimir Putin, but I do not believe he was ever at one of those parties that I was at. But his name was brought up more than once.
During the
And
1980s?
Yes.
Okay.
Vladimir Putin. I don't know even when he ascended to the presidency, but I remember the name because it was so unusual. Now, at that point, he may have just been, one of the Russian oligarchs or whatever, but his name came up, and I remember it just because it's an unusual name, Vladimir Putin, but I don't believe he was ever there. So that is like, I don't know, there are other names like that too.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about
I
Putin
remember
more.
Clinton's name being brought up, but I don't ever remember seeing it.
So Clinton was mentioned, but you never saw Clinton.
Not that I can recall. And that's another thing too. I may have had interactions with additional people, but during some of them, I was so drugged out of my mind, I don't really remember what happened.
Yeah. When you heard them talk about Putin, so it was at one of the parties at one of the farms, do you remember what they were saying about Putin?
Just that he was some sort of foreigner that was very important. I didn't know any more. The name was just unusual, and they mentioned his name. They kind of had fun saying his name. Vladimir. Does he like to go by Vlad or this or that? But the meeting with that person, I don't think ever materialized. I think it was just something that was discussed and never happened. Now, if he has other connections, and he very well may, that's possible. But I can just remember at those parties, there were people that had strange accents.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. That's all I could say. I couldn't point and say, well, this person was from Spain or this person was from Portugal. I have no idea. But what I do know for a fact is not every person at those parties was American.
Yeah.
I know that's not a lot, but I only remember what I
have a question. With Trump, with Putin, did you get the sense that the party attendees, that the clients were interested in Putin? There was something they wanted from Putin. They thought they could get money from Putin, influence from Putin. Did you have any sense of that?
The only sense that I had was that this was for the rich people, regardless of where they were from. So at this point in my child brain, I knew that there were rich people, and those people got to do whatever they wanted, and then there were poor people like me, and those people, that was the dynamic. So, that's it. I never heard them say anything about blackmailing and stuff like that, but I can remember them showing me a video of me doing bad stuff, and then I can remember people telling me that if I ever talked about it, what I had done was illegal too. And a lot of that was just bullshit because I was just a kid and they were making me do this stuff.
Yeah.
But
talk about malevolent hypocrisy. Dude, they were just utterly grotesque. They were trafficking you, they were assaulting you, they were drugging you, and then they were trying to
They were trying to make me feel guilty about
psychologically
any of it
torture
happening.
you. Exactly. When you were in this situation because they were trafficking you.
The last encounter with Trump, the one where I injured him, was the one that I remember the most vividly. And this was the setup for that. I can remember my dad, before we went to the farm, this was when we lived in Enterprise, Alabama.
Yeah.
So it would have been about 81 to 82, somewhere in there, maybe as late as 83. But he said there may be somebody that you know there. And I can remember the look on his face, and it scared the shit out of me. But anyway, when I got to the farm, of course, I'm scared at the farm because I don't know what's going to happen. But the first person that comes up to me is a girl named Patricia. This is a girl that I had been trafficked with before. And she came running up to me and, said hello or whatever. She was about my same age, around 12 or 13. And I can remember my dad saying, well, why don't you guys go run off or whatever and have fun? And I can remember not knowing what to do in that instance because, these parties weren't for me. I wasn't. And then he said something to the effect of, no, it's not like that for you anymore. You're a man now. You can just go out and have fun. Well, we went to go have sex. So we went and found a room and started having sex. And while we were having sex, people burst into the room. It would have been 4, 5, 6 guys, big guys, adults. At least one of them had a gun. I think 2 or 3 of them had guns. But they came in, they assaulted her, they beat on her, and then they shot her while she was still in the bed. They didn't beat or assault me, but what they said was, if you don't do everything that the next person coming in here wants, we're going to shoot you just like we did her. And I can remember them having like an argument because they shot her in the bed and then they had to go find another mattress. Well, that's when Trump came in. So that's why I remember him so vividly. And it was at that point I had already decided they're probably just going to kill me anyway. I'm going to take him with me. And I tried, but I did not.
How did you... So, obviously Trump was extremely violent. Trump's
Yes.
a sadistic psychopath. When Trump assaulted you, so sexual assault and physical assault?
Yes. So
And
at one point, I kind of acquiesced to whatever sexual things that he wanted to do. But at some point, he wanted me to have sex with him. So he laid down on his stomach, and there was a wooden tent stake that was in the room. And I had been eyeballing it as a weapon. And what I did was put the condom on the wooden tent stake, put it inside of him, and I kicked it as hard as I could. And that's why he had to get life flighted out, because I ripped him open.
I'm sorry. Do you ever watch the movie The Equalizer?
No, I haven't seen it.
Denzel Washington, sort of like justice when everyone involved in American law enforcement can't get any justice. That would be a sort of situation, obviously. I laughed because there's poetic justice there, Sascha.
That was what facilitated. Not only did I get really assaulted by Andy Biggs, I also got assaulted by like an entire party's worth of people. They took...
After Trump was airlifted out?
Yeah, a whole nother party. So they took me to another party after that, and because I had done that to one of those rich people, they took me from like station to station and they could do whatever they wanted. Most of them just beat on me. I can remember me standing there. I'd already gotten beaten up, I don't know, 5, 6 times. And I can remember somebody urinated on me. And I said, "Thank you for not hurting me." And he just hauled off and punched me in the side of the head and knocked me out. I can remember leaving that party, and my dad was just kind of dragging me out of there. It was another instance, just like with Andy Biggs, where I got beaten to the point where, the room was spinning. I was nauseous, probably throwing up, maybe some broken bones, badly.
And how many perpetrators did you say again? 20 to 40, 25 to 40 perpetrators?
People that were there, yes. I would say probably 8 or 10 that just beat the absolute hell out of me. And some of them probably sexually assaulted me, but I can't remember. I can remember getting hurt, just getting beaten up and,
Was that before you tried to defend yourself from Trump or after? Do you remember?
That was after. That was as a punishment, if you want to call it that. What happened at that party was part of the punishment, and then I can remember them saying that this is the last of it when I had to go see Andy Biggs, but Andy Biggs almost fucking killed me. So I remember him to this day.
So when Andy Biggs almost killed you was after Trump as well?
Yes.
Okay.
After Andy Biggs was after Trump. The party that a whole bunch of people assaulted me was after that, and then the last one was Andy Biggs, and then I can remember my dad saying no more. I can remember him even kind of breaking down a little bit, like psychologically, because of I guess, the repeated watching me just get destroyed by people. You got to understand, it's not like boo-boos and Band-Aids. They were breaking ribs and really hurting me. I've got like a deformed rib cage to this day.
No, sounds like they were trying to torture you just to the point of death, to punish you and to send a message.
They tried over and over again to hint to me to get me to kill myself. Yeah. And I can remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to kill myself because that's what they want. So, I kind of survived some of that just out of spite, to be honest with you. There's really no other way to put it, but I wasn't going to. I can remember hating my mom so much that I just did not want to give her the satisfaction.
Yeah.
She, as bad as my dad was, Marilyn Riley was even more evil. Her thing was sexually torturing me. So, and she enjoyed sexually torturing Samantha when they went and got her.
And Samantha was the runaway that
Riley,
yes, that William and...
She lived in a brothel, basically, a house where they had 4 or 5 underage girls that they had scooped up from wherever they got them from, and they would use those girls at these parties. Well, at one time, they sent me to go be a part of that brothel. So that's when I made friends with Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and those are the only 3 that I can remember their names. But Sarah committed suicide, Samantha was tortured to death, and Patricia was the girl that got shot in the bed before Trump came in.
Did Patricia die?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Samantha, Patricia, and Sarah, and all 3 died?
Yes. Yes.
So Samantha was the runaway that was murdered by your adoptive parents?
Yes.
Patricia committed suicide, Sarah committed suicide, and Patricia was murdered in the bed before Trump came in. And then they threatened you and said to let Trump do whatever Trump wanted to do to you, or they would shoot you in the head as well.
Yes. Yes.